So, you just joined a new campaign and you don't know where to start. Well, keep watching after the break and let's go over a few things I wish that I knew when I got into my first campaign. Hey everyone, it's me, the Galestrom, your father figure. We're back in with another D&D video, this time things that I wish I knew as a player when I got started. Now, we're gonna have a bit of a long one, so buckle in, but the first thing I want to talk about is when you're making your character. Let's say you just joined into a new group, everyone's excited, full hearts, bright eyes, and you don't know what you're doing. You've never played before, you have no idea what's going to happen, what to expect. So I wanted to make this video to help you along the way. This won't be a character creator, this won't be telling you how to build the best character you possibly can. It's just going to be some things that should help you ease along the way. But when we're making our character, we want to make sure that we're not trying to be the best at everything. Dungeons and Dragons is not a game where you can just min-max all the time and expect to have the strongest character, a god among men or women. You want to embrace some of your faults. So the way the game works is built around being strong in certain areas, but being weaker in others. That's how the game is generally balanced. You might have a sorcerer who's got really high charisma, which is used for his spellcasting stat, by the way, but low strength or health or dexterity or wisdom. We want to play into those a little bit. We want to work on what does it mean to have faults. I remember one of my favorite characters I ever played was a orc cleric of death who was blind. And I took that because he had low intelligence, he had low constitution. I was like, how do I play this up? The other thing is you want to ensure that you're actually enjoying playing your character in every facet of the game, whether it's in combat, so you have this huge fighter with heavy strength and high dex and high constitution, but you also want to ensure that you're enjoying playing the character in roleplay scenarios. What that means is if you don't like playing your character who has low intelligence and you don't like the fact that you're having to play either someone who's dumb or not very book smart but is very street smart, you want to make sure you find that good medium for you. Not every character has to have the exact same build, focusing on hyper tuning, right? Not every fighter has to have 18 strength at level 1. Part of the journey of Dungeons and Dragons is this expectation of growth, right? So level 1, you are a baby, effectively. You're just a baby. And you are a baby with a sword. And so as your story continues, you're going to be gaining more stats, you're going to be gaining more abilities. And so part of that growth is becoming better, right? So why would we want to focus everything all in at the very start when we could have that level of growth? Now, for some people, that's exactly how they want to play it. They want to be this hyper fixated, hyper tuned character who's good at one thing and one thing only. But for your first game, I'd recommend staying away from that mentality. The other thing I would do is talk with your party members. See how you can synergize. Maybe you've got a bard that has crazy amounts of charisma. He's proficient in deception and investigation, perception, intimidation, and persuasion. He is your talker. Now, he'll be like, yeah, I can talk a big game, but it might go south and I'm gonna need some backup. So maybe you pull in somebody else who's got pretty okay charisma, but they have really high intimidation. Or maybe someone has a spell that can really assist in their problem. You want to work with your other party members to ensure that you're covering each other's faults. This just helps you in the long run, and it helps build that camaraderie that a lot of people get from playing Dungeons and Dragons frequently. You can make a lot of really good friends and have really cool experiences at the table, but a lot of that just comes from being open and talking, saying, yeah, I'm a fighter, but I'm not very smart. Well, the wizard's like, hey, that's what I'm here for. Let me help you out. You come to me if you got a brain problem. I'll come to you if I got a muscle problem. And with that, we want to also take all of our failures in stride. A lot of people popularize a natural one in the game as the worst possible thing. Oh, I'm a failure. I rolled a 1 and it's the end of the world. Right? But one of the best things about the game is being able to embrace those, right? Let's say you're trying to jump over a fence for example, and your rogue does a front flip over it, and you're like, I can do that. I have a dex of 12. I can jump over that. You roll that nat 1. And yeah, you're going to fail, but you're going to fail hilariously. Maybe instead of doing that jump, you kind of stumble over and tell the DM that, say, well, here's how I imagine it happening, right? Embrace that one. Let people know that ones aren't always a bad thing. They can make some really hilarious moments at the table and some pretty memorable stuff. One of the things that I thought was really cool when I used to play games like Hackmaster, which is another D&D like game, another tabletop RPG, I would fail all the time, and I broke my leg, I got a bunch of battle scars, and after enough time, people began to recognize me, and we recognized our adventuring company. Because I was so beaten and broken and injured, it became a character trait that people could recognize me instantly and know exactly who I was. And that's really cool. That's something you could also work out with your game master as well, and say, hey, you know, I'm failing a lot in this particular area. Maybe we could work like a plot device or a cool little story detail about that. Embrace them. Embrace your failures. They're not always bad. Well, they are in the moment, but not permanently. The other thing that I want to bring up is finding the right group. Now, there's a lot of wonderful ways to find groups. I'll list some stuff in the description down below. But one thing you want to do with any group that you find, and I mentioned this in my DM tips video, link up there, by the way, you want to have a conversation at your table at the very start about a few things. The first, what are you not okay with? It's the very first question I recommend a lot of people have at their table is, what are you not okay with happening in the game? There's a lot of people who have their past and they don't want to revisit it. That's fine. The next thing is a lot more lighthearted, and that's just, what kind of game do you want to experience? You might have someone who's a big fan of hack and slash gameplay, games like Diablo, where they run through and kill a plethora of demons back and forth and just flood the streets with demon blood. And someone else at your table might say, well, I actually really want to play in a espionage game. I really want to be a spy. I had this idea for a spy master that I really want to play. And another person might say, well, I want to be a ranger and I want to have all these cool abilities and meet all these exotic animals and stuff like that. Just talking about that alone is going to give your dungeon master or your game master ways to make up encounters for you. Figure out how to hit all these keystones. And also lets your other players know kind of like what kind of things you're into in that regard. It gets people talking and it gets people working together like, oh yeah, that's really cool. I want to help him with his espionage. I want to be the distraction so he can sneak into this tower and steal a wizard's spellbook. I want to help this paladin destroy a demon lord, because why not? Why not? And like I've been saying before, there's a lot of people who love this kind of gameplay, this cooperative storytelling experience that we have, or memories like that. Everyone remembers that time that you can jump into a portal to hell and then beat up a demon to take his lunch money, right? It's something that you all make sort of an inside joke, and it's a really good time. The next thing I would say is talk to your DM about what kind of campaign they intend on running, and let them know your worries. There's a feat in the player's handbook, the baseline guide for all players, that gives you an ability to be better, basically underground at all times. And let's say that you want to take that on your dwarven ranger who specializes on creatures in the Underdark, drow and beholders and flail snails, and then you never go into a dungeon. You never go delving. You never go underground. Because lo and behold, you're in a forest the entire game. The entire campaign takes place in the Feywild, and you never get to use your feet. That sucks. That sucks real bad. Nobody wants to play in that game when you've spent so much time perfecting your beautiful dungeon delver. You've got a bunch of people who are ready to, you've prepared everything before, you've gotten your rope, you've gotten all the things you need to go diving into a dungeon or into a pit, and it never happens. So it's important to talk to your DM to see what kind of game that they intend on running. Let them know, like, hey, I would love to make use of this feat. Because yes, it's not needed for the campaign, but like, I don't want to take a feat and then never use it. Personally, it's like you take a feat that makes you better against attacks of opportunity, and the DM says, that's not a thing in my game. Like, well, what am I supposed to do now? I took a whole feat for this and then nothing's happening. What am I supposed to do with that? That sucks. That really sucks. So even as a player or GM, I can commiserate with that. And I want to make sure that you, the viewer, get the most use out of your feats and items and playstyle as you can. So have that conversation with your GM. Let them know what you intend on doing. Just open that communication with them. It's really helpful. Another thing, if you are making a character in Dungeons and Dragons, make sure you know what they can do. Read up on them. Learn about them. Learn what your abilities do and when the appropriate time to use them is. I've had fighters who don't know what second wind is, never use it in a fight, and they're like, oh, I'm just not hardy enough. It's like, well, you're not using your abilities. Goes, I have abilities? I just thought I swung my sword. Yeah, you've got plenty of abilities that you can use. You should read up on them. Specifically if you're a caster. If you're a spellcaster, know what your spells do, know how you can empower your spells, and if you can, learn the text. Not all of it, just enough to tell the DM, this is what it does. Be confident in that. I can't tell you how many times I've been at a table. We've had our wizard just flipping through the book, just going, wait, hold on. Wait a minute. I'll find it. I'll find it. I'll find it. I'll find it. Just wait. Just wait. Hold on. Let me read it. Hold on. Just, nobody likes that. Nobody likes that. Nobody likes it. Nobody likes it. Nobody likes it. What I would recommend if you are a spellcaster and you are new to the game is first, read your spells. Read every single spell that you've prepared or that you can bring with you if you're a cleric or druid, and learn them. Learn what they do. Learn basically what they do. If you look at a spell and you're like, it's got bolt in the name, it's probably a projectile that does damage. If you don't want to spend the time to learn them, make flashcards, or you can buy the Wizards of the Coast official spell cards, which will let you basically have playing cards with you that you just put down, and you're like, this is what my spell is right here. I've got it now. So that's really nice. So that'd be a good way to do that. I say this because some of those spells are very, very long. Looking at you, teleport. That's right. That's right. I see you. Okay. Lastly, but definitely not least, I asked a lot of people what they wanted to know about Dungeons and Dragons when they first started playing. And I cannot tell you how many times people said to me, acronyms. There are too many acronyms in the game. And I'd agree. We have a lot of acronyms in Dungeons and Dragons. Do I know what they all mean? Probably not. And I've been playing for a long, long time. But I've looked up a list of acronyms here that most people are unaware of, at least when they're getting started. So I'm gonna just rapid fire them real quick, and we're gonna run through it. So buckle in. FLGS, Friendly Local Game Store. DM's your Dungeon Master. GM is your Game Master. PC is player character. NPC, non-player character. DMPC, Dungeon Master player character. This is a character controlled by the DM to like go with you in a party. RP means roleplay. IC is in character. OOC, out of character. Usually this is when you're like, hey, Jimmy, we should think about a plan. That's usually out of character. Instead of being like, oh, Balethor, thou mustest seeketh thine intuition. In character. PvP is player versus player. You fight another player. PvM is player versus monster. I'm gonna beat up that monkey. PvE is player versus environment. This is you versus an environmental obstacle, or what some people just call everything else. Raw is rules as written. That's verbatim what the rules say. Versus RAI, or rules as intended, meaning you kind of figure out what they were going for without being strictly to the T. WOTC, Wizards of the Coast, who make the game. DDB is D&D Beyond, an electronic resource for Dungeons and Dragons. I'll leave a link to that below. It's really nice. FG is Fantasy Grounds. It's another map. It's a wonderful collection tool, kind of like D&D Beyond, but third party. Roll20, again, like Fantasy Grounds and D&D Beyond, but free. FR is Forgotten Realms, where most of the game takes place nowadays. GP is gold pieces. This is your standard currency. SP is silver pieces, like gold, but less. And then lastly, we have copper pieces, like gold and silver, but worse. LFG is looking for group or looking for a game. Now let's go into your editions. We're gonna keep going. 5E is the current edition. That stands for 5th edition. 4E is 4th edition. It was the one in the past that kind of played like a heavy power game that was also a tactical game. 3 and 3.5E were 3rd and 3.5 edition respectively. They were the larger version prior to 5th. 2E is 2nd edition. AD&D is Advanced Dungeons & Dragons or 1st edition. PF is Pathfinder. PF2 is Pathfinder 2.0, which is still in beta. UA is Unearthed Arcana. That's where Wizards of the Coast likes to push out a bunch of new stuff for us to playtest. Things like the Old Artificer, new subclasses, new races, new classes in general. It's a great place to go check it out. I'll leave a link to it in the description below for you. AC is your armor class. That's how hard it is to hit you. AoE is an area of effect. Think like a big fireball has an area it affects. OA is a opportunity attack, or inversely AOO, or attack of opportunity. This is when you try and move out of someone's space and they just want to stab you. ATK is of course your attack. BBEG, big bad evil guy. This is generally your main villain of the campaign, or just a smaller villain in a localized arc. DC is going to be your difficulty class. It's how hard it is to do something, whether it is to attack someone, to lift a door, or to cast a spell. DPR is damage per round, similar to DPS if you're into video games. This is just how much damage you or your group can do every single round of combat or every 6 seconds, depending on your system. HP is your hit points, how many damage you can take before you dead. PP is passive perception, how well do you see things out of the corner of your eye. TPK, total party kill, it's when all of you die. That's it, game over. XP is experience points. Again, if you're a video gamer, you know exactly what this is. This is how many good fun bucks you get for defeating an encounter or a monster. STR is strength. How strong are you? DEX stands for dexterity. How nimble are you? CON for con, that stands for constitution. How many hit points do you get and how sturdy is your body? INT for int. Oh, we're not inting, we've got intelligence. WIS for wisdom. You're pretty wise. I got nothing for this. CHA, it's not cha-cha slide, it's charisma. How good can you talk to people and how good can you lie to them? PHB stands for the Player's Handbook. This is your be-all, end-all for player resources. Start here if you're trying to learn how to play the game. DMG is your Dungeon Master's Guide. If you're looking to start running games, you'll want to pick this one up and start reading. Has a bunch of good information for you starting DMs. MM stands for Monster Manual. This is where you find all the baddies that you want to beat up. Volo's Guide, or Volos, or VGM. Volo's Guide to Monsters. It has a bunch of background information for a lot of different kinds of monster classes, and it'll give you a little bit more information about how they work. If you really want to work on the hierarchy of beholders, it's all there for you. Xans, it's not a pill. It stands for Xanathar's Guide to Everything. Another handy resource book for you and your party. MTF or MTOF or Morty's is the Mordenkainen Tome of Foes. Another handy resource for you and your party for some extra fun stuff. SCAG is the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide. This is another handy thing to help you get other races, other classes, other spells, just more extra content that your table may or may not need. LMOP or LMOP is the Lost Mines of Phandelver. It is the adventure in the starters kit, which is really nice. COS or CAWS is actually Curse of Strahd, wonderful adventure where you take down a vampire king. Not really a king. SKT, Storm King's Thunder. You ever want to fight giants in the clouds? I bet you do. TYP stands for the Tales from the Yawning Portal. It's a collection of short adventures that you can take your party on. So I got a bunch of cool stuff in it. Basically, they took a bunch of old adventures and remade it into 5th edition. Really good stuff. I'm sure that I missed other ones, but that's basically the gist of everything else. If you can think of something that I left out, definitely leave me a comment down below. And let me know what you think of the video overall. If you enjoy these D&D like videos, leave it a like. Let me know what you all think of it. And consider subscribing to the channel and ringing that dirty little bell to know when I push new videos out live to this platform. But thanks so much for watching. And as always, gang, I don't see you. See you later. Bye.